For this video, I will be demonstrating margins, print preview, paper size, envelopes, and labels. The document I'm using to demonstrate these skills will be Chocolate. It's found in your Lessons 8 student folder. The ribbon that we'll be using will be the Page Layout ribbon. When we display the Page Layout ribbon, you'll notice that we have the groupings of themes, page setup, page background, paragraphs, and arrange. Much like with many Word applications and Microsoft Office applications, there are many ways to do the same thing. When we talk about page setup and margins, we can use the ruler, or we can use our page layout area and the page setup. Notice my margins, my orientation, size, columns, breaks, line numbers, and hyphenation are all within this grouping. To the right is the launcher. My page setup launcher will also give me a dialog box, providing me to edit the margins, the paper, and the layout. We're going to begin with the margins. I'm going to close this dialog box for now and edit the margins from the Margins selection. This is where we can select normal margins, which would be 1 inch, top, bottom, left, and right. Narrow margins, 0.5. Moderate would be top and bottom of 1 inch, left and right, of 0.75. Wide margins, top 1 inch, bottom 1 inch, left and right at 2 inches. Mirrored margins. This is helpful when it comes to 3-hole punching for both front and back, where my top margin and bottom margin would be 1 and 1, but inside margins would be 1.25, outside margins would be 1, and that would be the opposite for even and odd pages. Then we have the default. The default again is automatic for 2007 at 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch, and 1 inch. The default for 2003 was 1 inch top, 1 inch bottom, 1.25 left, 1.25 and right. So you can select from any of these margin settings, or we could go into custom margins. What custom margins will simply do is launch the page setup window, where we can edit our top, left, right, and bottom margin from this window. Notice within this window as well, we can also change our orientation. Portrait, top to bottom, landscape, 8.5 by 11, 8.5 being our height, 11 being our width. Notice how I've changed this. So my page is currently 11.5 wide with still 1 inch margins, providing 9 inches of text space. I can change that orientation back 2 ways, by going back into margins and custom margins, or going to my orientation and changing it back to portrait. Notice within this grouping we can also go to size. Size is the actual size of the page. Once again, letter, legal, statement size, executive. We also have letter and envelope sizes, large sizes, tabloid size, 11-17, envelopes, etc. You can also create your own custom size of paper. It is also within this window that we can go back to our margins or our page setup launcher and not only change the margins, top, right, left, bottom, but also the landscape. In addition, we've got a preview window here. We'll be talking more about print preview in a moment. Let's go to the paper tab. The paper tab is where you can also change the size of the paper or create custom. The layout tab is where you have options such as different odd and even pages, different first page, which will come in very handy when we talk about headers and footers, changing our header and footer size from the edge, and also our vertical alignment. Much as text can be centered left to right, a page can be centered top to bottom. So, for example, I'm going to cancel this, and if I was to go in and preview this now, what I'm going to do is minimize the view so you can see my page. Notice how it is currently aligned at the top. If I wanted to center this page top to bottom, I could simply go into my Page Setup Launcher, Layout tab, Vertical Alignment, select Center, and that is now centered on the page given the margin settings. Now let's talk briefly about envelopes and labels. For this action, I'm going to go to the Mailings tab, providing the ribbon of Create, Start Mail Merge, Write and Insert Fields, Preview Results, and Finished. The only options available this time will be in Create and two of the options in Mail Merge. Later in this book, we will get to Mail Merge. For right now, let's talk just about envelopes and labels. Envelope is simply, it gives you the format of an envelope. When launched, the envelope window will display. This is where you can both select the size of your window and envelope and the feeding direction for your printer. To change any of these settings, we can go to Options and select from a different size envelope. There's two areas on an envelope. One is the delivery address, appearing in the center, and the return address, which will appear in the upper left-hand corner. Notice how I am addressing this letter to American River College. Simply by typing the information into the spaces provided. This would be my delivery address. If I was to send this and not put a return address, let's say I'm using letterhead, that would not be necessary to put a return address. I can then go to Add to Document, and what Add to Document will do is notice within this document I now have the letter or the document I was previously working on, and I now have a new page to my document which represents the envelope. Now notice if we did not want to add this envelope to this document, we could also print directly from this window, and we would then have our envelope ready for mailing. Within this window as well, we have labels, or we could have used the ribbon to go directly to labels. This is very similar, but a couple things I want to draw your attention to. The first and most important thing, selecting your label. When you have labels or you want to print labels from a printer, make sure you check and confirm what label you're using. So let's say I'm using a Avery US label, which is pretty standard, and we can use 5660 is very common, which is an easy peel label, and I could use that as my default. Notice, if I only wanted one label, I could simply print that now. However, if I was creating labels, and let's say these were return labels, I could also do an entire page of the same label. It would look like this. Or let's say, and I'm going to go back to our document here. If I was using my labels and I only wanted a single label, I could also use the same sheet, but let's say I've used the labels on the first two rows. I could then go to the third row, first column, and that one piece of information would only print on that one label that I wanted to use. The last thing I want to talk about in this video will be print preview. If we go to the Backstage and we go to print, notice you have the print options available for you here, and this will provide a print preview. Print preview is very, very helpful. It's so important to print preview before printing, simply to save time, energy, and resources. From the print preview button, we could print specific pages, we could collate, we could change orientation, we can also change our margins from here as well. We could set up just one sheet or two sheets or three sheets per page. Let's say that we were working with a draft or thumbnails. So it's from this print preview option where you can also select the printer you want to send to, or how many copies you would like to print, or would you like to print in color or black and white. The options when it comes to this print window will also vary depending on your printer properties, so be aware. The important thing to remember here is always print preview before printing. Again, it will save time, resources, and often frustration.